to order. We have a full complement of committee members with Mr. Killian, Larson, Neal, and Ms. Watson online. And can crank from there. Have a public comment or suggestion time allotted. Nobody's present. We've had time to review the minutes from December 7th. They look quite complete and appropriate to me. Anybody have any comments or suggestions on those? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from December 7th? Mr. Killian, Mr. Larson, second. Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Thank you all. Unanimous approval, thank you. And we're going to launch right into the Emerald Ash Borer plan. We did have something started, but we're going to have staff lead us through anything that we need to rethink.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to turn this over to Andy Sims. He's our city forester. He's put together a PowerPoint presentation for you to kind of talk about where we've been, where we currently are, and where we would like to go with this, and get some direction from you as the committee on our emerald ash borer treatment. Hopefully you've had a chance to look in your packet at the presentation we included. That was a presentation given to the Parks Committee and the City Council back in 2016. It gives a little bit of more in-depth detail on the emerald ash borer itself and kind of what it does, and at that time it was not here yet. It unfortunately now is for sure here, has been identified by Mr. Sims, and he can talk to you a little bit more about that. But if you haven't had a chance to look over the 2016 plan, I encourage you to do so, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well, but then we can answer any questions you might have specific to the emerald ash borer and its effects here on our city trees. So I'm going to share our screen and bring up the PowerPoint. Okay. Do you want me to start this from the beginning?
Yeah, that's fine. Good afternoon, everyone. So thanks for plugging through this with me. It's pretty brief, just a few slides, about a dozen slides. So we'll go into a little bit of an overview where we started in 2016 and what we've done since then and the direction we think we should head. So you can go to the first slide, Jamie.
Next one?
Yep.
Okay.
Nope, I'm sorry. Yep, there we go. Thank you. So this is just kind of an overview of what I've got put together for today. I'm sure there's going to be questions. I'll do my best to answer them. If we start getting into numbers, it might get a little more challenging, but we'll do what we can here. But like I said, we'll start off with what our population was in 2016 and then discuss that plan that you guys got in your packets. That was a PowerPoint put together back then just to kind of describe what emerald ash borer is, what it does, and what we thought we should do at the time prior to actually finding the insect in town. And then we've been treating, which we'll discuss that as well, what that is and what that means, and then see what our current state's at and where we go from there. And then that's kind of where it comes to you folks to help give us some direction or some thumbs up, I guess, so to speak. So you can go to the next one. So in 2016, we had roughly 5,200 ash trees in the boulevards. A couple hundred of them we inventoried in the city parks, but that doesn't include, those minimal use areas. So, but really the trees we're talking about right now are those 5,200 that we started with. And we were close to that 20% overall street tree population, which, as you can see below that last bullet point, you recommended not to have more than 10% of any genus, which ash is genus Fraxinus, and then any more than 5% of any species. So we've got white ash, green ash, black ash, but nevertheless, we're still way more than we should have. Next one. So the plan that was discussed in 2016, and I think only a couple committee members were present at the time, so And I don't expect you to remember 4 years ago. I can hardly remember the weekend. So what we talked about is kind of a 7-year plan on how to manage what we had and how we were going to take care of that. So the plan was to remove about 30% of our overall ash population. So those were trees in poor condition, trees under power lines, and things that would come down during street reconstruction or just normal failure or normal mortality. So with the remainder, we were going to proactively treat 70%, roughly 70% of the trees that remain that were in good or better condition. And you'll see coming up what kind of numbers we've been treating. So, and then all the while, as we're taking these ash down, we're going to replace them right away with some viable alternatives, which we've been doing. Next one. So that treatment is, it's with emamectin benzoate, so it's sold under the name Triage, probably not that important to you, but what that is a product that is labeled for 2 years of protection for the tree, so it kills the larva, it mitigates that feeding damage of the adult, and kills eggs. So the first year we got about 1,000 ash trees treated on the east side, so the upper east side, think Franklin Street North roughly. And we realized that we needed to get a different formulation of that product in order to meet our goals of what we wanted to actually get injected. So we changed that formulation this past year in 2000, got about 1,600 trees done, which leaves about 1,250 for us next year, or this year now. So as I mentioned, that product is labeled for 2 years, but current research is pointing more towards 3 years. So really, realistically, everything we've treated in town is covered at this point. As far as dying from emerald ash borer, it isn't going to happen. So we've got a lot of trees protected at this point. So currently, our population, we've been reducing that population, and I've got another 450 trees plus what are going to be removed by a contractor, which is going to take our population down just below 4,000, which is about a 24% reduction. So we're pretty close to that 30% goal of reduction, and that's been done in 5 years. So I guess technically from the original plan, we've got a couple years left to meet that goal, which shouldn't be an issue. So what we've been removing, and this is from my predecessor as well as me, but most of these trees are what I term low-hanging fruit. So things that are in a commercial area, industrial areas, medians, things that we don't really have to have an interaction with the homeowner and say, hey, I'd like to take this out. These are trees that we can just go in, take out, remove, replace, and move on. So really what that means is what's left in town are the trees in residential areas. And as you'll see coming up, we've got a lot of trees in residential areas, and some residential areas have way more ash trees than others. Next one. So a big part of my job when it comes to ash trees is public safety. And in order to do this and maintain public safety, that was where the original plan came in 2016. We're thinking about safety. And the biggest take home from this is that, well, two-part, it's not that easy to identify a tree that has the emerald ash borer larva in it if they aren't in it for very long. And once they're in the tree for about 4 years, that tree becomes brittle and very dangerous. And that little blurb in the middle there in red it kind of speaks to that, where the force it takes to break a normal healthy 1-inch limb will now break a 5-inch limb. So that's what that insect is actually doing to these trees. It dries it out to the point where those trees then fail relatively easily. So, and we talk about targets. So a tree in the boulevard has targets all over. I mean, whether it's a car, a house, a mailbox, a person. So we're looking at mitigating that risk. So we're going to plan with safety in mind, as well as some other things. So I guess what I would like you to understand is that ultimately everything's coming out. All these ash trees will be removed, whether it's on our schedule like we're trying to do, or on the insect schedule. So best case is to remove these trees, replace them, and or a combination of treatment. So the real question is, what is that balance? So we've got the safety aspect, I think you understand. We've got the canopy coverage, which we want to maintain and or replace. And you've got the benefits of what that canopy provides to the community. So the plan we're suggesting, based on budgets that we're currently at and what we think we can accomplish, we're looking at progressive removal of all of our ash within 8 to 12 years. And what that's going to mean is we're going to have to continue some treatment and continue our replacement in order to maintain that canopy. But we'll do this in a progressive, intelligent manner where, you know, the first area in town that was treated is the northeast part of town. So we want to remove those trees, I guess, would be next in line, because rather than treat those trees 1 year and then remove them the next, we'd rather have that 2 or 3 year spacing prior to the removal. So hopefully this makes sense. I don't know, I explained it to Jamie earlier today and it seemed to come out clearer, but I'll field those questions. So next up. So this is a image of our tree inventory, tree management software. The points in yellow denote ash trees. The points in green are all other trees. This is the Upper East Side. The very top road, east-west road, is Evergreen. The next east-west road down is Maple Hill. So going from Riverview Grade School on the southeast corner heading due east is a stretch of Maple Hill Road that is entirely ash trees, and as well as Ashland and many of those other roads. So on the next slide, I just took a picture, got out of the truck and took a picture. So, you know, this is what we're looking at. We've got streets like this in town that are completely full of ash trees with no diversity, and looking at a really big impact to residents. And my thought process on this is not a wholesale removal and replacement. I think the logical, and this is my opinion, but I think it's shared with many residents as they've spoken to me, you know, they don't want to have 3 ash trees in their boulevard all removed at once, and then, you know, a bunch of 2-inch trees, you know, just sitting there before they become a viable shade source for them or what have you. So the thought process I have is, you know, a street like this, maybe we do 50% of the trees get removed and then replaced, and, you know, 5 years down the road when those trees are established and doing something, then we come through and finish up and then replace those. So so this is kind of where the challenges part is, making those that communication to those homeowners in a grand scale. I don't think it's feasible for me and my staff to have face-to-face contact with every single resident that has an ash tree and, you know, make an individual determination on what's going to happen on that site. We need to get that information out to people and get them to understand and be on board with what the plan is, and then move forward with it. So again, my thought process is, you know, we're going to do this incrementally and intelligently, so we're not losing trees due to the insect, and we're also getting things replaced so that it's not as impactful to the residents. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we're looking at. It's a cute insect, but very damaging. So I will be ready to field questions that you may have and do my best to answer them, and if I can't answer them today, I'll get something out to you probably as early as tomorrow.
I have several, Andy. So white, green, and black ash, we've got them all, and they're all vulnerable to this, but that European mountain ash or whatever it is not?
Correct. All ash in the genus Fraxinus are susceptible to emerald ash borer, so those 3 would qualify. Mountain ash is sorbus, so those are not a true ash.
Are you using that ash to replace some of the other ones?
Not a lot of mountain ash are in the boulevards. It's not really a suitable boulevard tree because of the fruit bearing feature that it has. Tends to be more of a messy fruit that falls on sidewalks. There are sites that it will work on where we don't have sidewalks, and you know, and actually, ironically, I had a resident request a mountain ash be replaced in their boulevard. So, you know, we've got one coming, but no, it's not a frequent replacement.
Okay, and then how did the change in the formulation of that triage stuff enable you to treat more trees? Did it a different way of applying it?
No, great question. It actually gets applied the same exact way. It's a less diluted formulation. So we went from G4 triage, which we'll say averages 3 measured shots per injection site to our 10 product, which is same exact product, same exact active ingredient, but it's on average 1 shot per site. So you drill the same number of holes, you put the same number of injection plugs in, but you're spending a lot less time waiting for that tree to take up the product. So.
And the risk is that the branches actually become brittle and just start falling off.
That's exactly what it is. That one slide I had, I don't know if you want to go back to the, just before, one before that, I think. Nope, another one. Okay, keep going. There we go.
You think of ash trees, that's strong.
It is.
You know, they make baseball bats and shovel handles out of that.
You bet they do. So that bottom left picture shows wind damage in the middle of winter. So there's no leaves on those branches, but those branches fail anyway. So it's such minimal force to cause those to fail. That's the big concern. And I've spoken with other arborists and other community managers, and what they're finding is, you know, every tree has a different characteristic. You know, when you go to cut it, you know, when you're in the tree and you're actually working the tree, and you'll cut into a 3-4 inch branch on a dead ash or a dying ash or a disease, or, you know, infected ash, and that'll break partway into the cut. Whereas typically an ash would hold on 3/4 of the way through the cut. So, you know, it's breaking in that first quarter of your cut. So you can really recognize that difference in force and what it takes to remove a branch or have a branch fail.
So with ash trees, I know this is not your direct responsibility and they aren't on the boulevard on city property, but we need to work toward informing property owners that if they've got an ash tree in their backyard and it dies, they need to do something about it.
Absolutely, and really my advice is to do it before it dies. I think the problem some homeowners may find is the safety aspect to actually remove that tree. You know, if you've got a dead tree and you can't get a truck to it, somebody has to climb that tree to remove it, and you know, that puts that person at risk. So, you know, that's part of the reason we're looking at doing this, you know, kind of continuing the plan we started, but really looking to be a little more aggressive in the removal end of things to, you know, just get these hazards out of there and do it in a safe manner and try to be as mindful as we can of, you know, obviously the fiscal resources that were allotted, but also to ensure that we've got canopy. You know, some people were around when Dutch elm disease came, and you know, it was catastrophic. And hopefully we've learned from that, but I wasn't around when that happened, so I can only read and try not to replicate exactly how that happened.
How many times do you think some of these trees are going to get treated before it's their time to go?
Well, we're looking at, realistically, I think we're at a 3-year rotation now. Originally when we talked, we were at 2, but based on the research we're finding, plus how we've gone to this point with the 19, 20, 21 in order to inject everything that we want to inject, on a 3-year rotation, if we're looking at 8 to 12 years of total removal, 4 times at most, probably, per tree, you know, but then again, and I'm not sure if the point you're getting at is the holes drilled in the base of the tree, but that's another concern of mine.
Well, every year, you're treating fewer trees pretty soon, aren't you?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
But
yeah,
some of the
to reduce
last
that treatment
ones
cost.
to go may have been treated 3 or 4 times before they...
That'd be on the, I would say on the high end, yeah. I mean, I think realistically a couple times, and I think we're gonna be looking to get these trees out.
Yeah.
Tom Neal here with a question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I guess I'm kind of hearing 2 different things. You know, when I hear like an 8 to 12 year program before we have them all removed. But then, you know, we have that photo of the street that was sort of described as, you know, almost 100% ash. And I thought I heard, you know, at 1 year we go through and take out 50% and replace them with, you know, plantings, and then follow up, I don't know, a year or so later for the other 50%. And that doesn't, to me, sound like an 8 to 12 year plan for blocks like that. That sounds like, you know, half of them go, and then they're replaced by, you know, little trees, and then the other half go. And essentially, you're going to have a street that has a lot of really tiny trees on it. Just recently, when this year, when the street project on Kickbush was done, I walked up and down the street during the height of the construction / destruction, and trees were just downed left and right on Kickbush. Asked people on site, why were these trees brought down? And the answer was, well, primarily because they were ash. I wasn't told because they were infected ash or they were dangerous ash. It was just because they were ash. And, you know, Kickbush was kind of transformed from a very much tree-lined street to now one that's a lot less canopied. So what I'm, long story short, trying to get at is on a street such as the one that's depicted here, cannot we have a more staggered approach over the years, over the 8 or so years, to remove them at like a 20% clip or 15% clip, and replace them so you have more of a variety of sized trees. You know, the plantings of some of the plantings, the earliest ones have time to get settled and start to shoot up. Other ones are going to stagger behind. So I'm concerned about streets like this being kind of radically altered in short order.
Yep, and I think that's a great point. Actually, a couple points you make, Tom. So I think when I was speaking of Maple Hill, I may have said 5 years between getting a new tree established and removing the remainder. But really what this, and that was kind of just a hypothetical, do we remove a third? Do we remove half? What is that right number? And I think what that right number, in order to get to what that right percentage is in blocks like this, has to do with what kind of a time frame we put on this. So if we put a 12-year time frame on it, then we can do this in thirds, and so we'll treat 2/3 of the trees now, remove a third, and then come back and treat a third of the original, and then remove a third, and then be down to that last grouping of trees, which is going to give a staggered time frame between establishment of the young trees, of the new ones. As far as Kickbush goes, with all road reconstruction, and this predates my time in this position, it was determined that if there are ash on a road reconstruction project, that those ash will be removed, as it was part of the original 2016 proposal that was brought forward to this committee. So anything that's being reconstructed, if there's an ash in that boulevard, that's automatically slated for removal. And then on Kickbush, as I was the one responsible for determining many of those removals, it had to do with tree size. So, and I can't give you an exact size, but let's say there's a 20-inch maple tree there. The chance of that tree surviving after the roots are ripped up where the sidewalk is, and also on the roadside, and then perhaps the water's 8 feet away, and all of that excavation occurs, it's a very low likelihood of that tree surviving. So I made that determination as to which trees I believed would survive versus the ones that would not. An example is on Kent Street, and actually I don't think anything's left there. But what happened at Kent Street got reconstructed, and there were trees that were left that were much smaller than that 20-inch size range, like 12-inch, 13-inch maples, and they didn't die right away, but 2 or 3 years later, those trees died, and it was a result of that construction damage that the tree was just too big. There were too many roots damaged. So trying to do that kind of preventatively, I guess, during that construction project. But you're right, it is very impactful for those residents when you have a full canopy and then you come in and wipe it out and start over. It's that's a big change. I agree.
Follow up here.
Yep. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. Well, with regards to street construction projects, and this committee has had a variety of meetings, with the head of DPW. We've studied some processes that are undertaken in Milwaukee. We had reports from like the tree czar down there, and we supposedly have language written into directions for contractors for street projects for tree protection with regards to protecting root systems when redoing sidewalks and things like that as part of our ongoing tree saving efforts, so that we're not, just utilizing, the old straight line engineer approach. And if a tree is in the way, the tree goes. Our committee had numerous meetings and determinations and votes that we wanted to go ahead to pursue a policy that protects trees during street construction projects. And that might be like changing the direction of a sidewalk here and there, getting an easement from residents to shift, maybe have a bit more of a serpentine sidewalk rather than a straight line one if needed. This was like, our adopted policy, and I'm a little concerned to hear tonight that, the policy is if it's there, it goes, because it would probably die anyways because of damage done to it. And what we've talked about is preventing the damage. So where are we at on that policy going forward?
Sure, that's an excellent question. That's actually one of my personal goals as far as working with the engineering department is how we mitigate that damage, not only on road reconstruction, but just on simple sidewalk replacement. We have, I've researched a product that can be used to, this is speaking strictly with sidewalks, so we're maybe a little bit off topic on this, but this is a good conversation. So there's a product that will deflect roots down 18 inches below sidewalk level and allow them to resurface, in yards as they normally would. And what that will do is mitigate that damage to sidewalks, so it will increase the life cycle of a sidewalk to reduce the need for root cutting and sidewalk square replacement. However, that product will not work when there's already an existing tree in that location. It's something that has to be installed during the construction process, and then that is the site that a tree will always get planted on, where that barrier is placed. So that's one of the things I'm working on with the engineering department. Beyond that, I think there may be a little bit of a internal conflict between departments as far as the value of trees. I'm in a position here where, public safety is first and foremost, but I wouldn't be in this field if I didn't have a strong care and love of trees. So I'm completely on board as far as, if we can get right-of-way access to move sidewalks and, how we design things and what the size of a boulevard is in order to grow large mature trees, I'm 100% on board with that.
Sure.
Some of the other discussions you had with, previous to my time in this position, so I started this role in October of 2019. So I think some of this stuff may have happened, right? Okay. Some of this stuff may have happened before me, so I might not totally be up to speed with the conversations you had regarding Milwaukee and the engineering department. But I've been trying to make those inroads myself within interdepartmentally. So.
Sure. If you were to go to McIndoe Street between 9th and 10th on the south side of the street, you would notice, well, I guess a couple of big stumps now, but they're big. But the sidewalk, at some point in the house's history, went kind of serpentine around two large trees. There was obviously an easement onto the front yard to go around these trees rather than zip right past them to save them. And I don't know when that happened. I don't know all the history of it, but I mean, it did happen, and I'm sure it happened because of a conversation between a resident and the city. The resident may have been concerned about, I love my beautiful trees, I don't want them to be taken down. And just hearkening back to our discussions with Mr. Lindman and our understandings, as far as I recall them, is that sort of thinking is something that has to be more widespread in our management of our canopy. Because when we talk about canopy, we have to talk about things that are overhead, not at the height of our shoulders. And this whole discussion about straight line sidewalks ruling the day, rather than looking at the value of individual trees as part of a project and determining which ones qualify as ones that are sort of like the godfather of the canopy on that street, or the Godfathers or whatever, and are earmarked, for protection, and then discussions between the city and the residents about establishing easements, that we'd like to, edge into your front yard 24 inches to make a curve, and I think you're going to find more residents saying, yes, please do, I don't want to lose my tree. And it's less for them to mow. So, I mean, this is the kind of thing I think, and I don't know if, this might be off topic for tonight's agenda, but this really, I think, is something we need to keep our eye on going forward so that we don't have wholesale actions when there might be more targeted ones going forward. We've talked a lot about the fiscal value of a canopy, of trees on a property. They have a dollar value to the homeowner. Should they want to, resell that house at some point, having a beautiful large tree in the front yard, versus some very tiny little saplings, makes a difference in what they can ask for, because of the curb appeal and the aesthetics of their lot. So I mean, this is something that we really got to keep our eyes on, and I hope that we can, going forward, get kind of regular reports on where we are in terms of finalizing and utilizing a program, a process for dealing with this. Otherwise, I'm just scared of the old kind of engineering approach, which is, it's in the way, knock it down. That's just not how we as a committee have discussed it in the past, and it's certainly not what we want to see happening.
I think, Alderman Neal, I was encouraged to see that in the Director of Public Works budget request this year, there was a position that it would, at least part of that position would be tree preservation. It didn't make it through the budget process, but I was very pleased to see the Director of Public Works include that as a priority. So maybe in the future we can get that approved. I do think that it would be nice if somebody had that role. It's your job to save as many trees as you can save, and you're going to be graded on that. But I understand, foresters they're trained and they are accustomed to taking a long view and look into, okay, maybe we don't cut that tree down this year, but just going to die in 2 years, that sort of thing. So we have to trust their professional judgment too. But anything else on this topic from any of the other committee members?
Well, my last thing is I would just, looking at that street, the photo that we've referenced here a few times with all the ash on it, I would advocate like a 4 or 5 step transition rather than a 2 or 3 step transition.
Yeah, even if you took every third tree, with the first cut, it would be a whole lot better. Is that, Mr. Sims, is that do a lot to the efficiency of the operation, to come back on the same street in like every 3 years or something like that, to remove trees, or is that kind of a wash?
I don't think efficiency is really part of the discussion with respect to this. My crew wouldn't go in and wholesale remove trees like this. We would contract it, and if they have to bounce around town, you can get anywhere in town in 10 minutes. So I don't see why making multiple trips to a site like this would impact that at all.
Okay. Anything else from the committee?
So, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you.
Pardon?
So what we're asking here tonight is to kind of just know, so the committee is now aware, we had a 7-year plan. That was with the idea that emerald ash borer hadn't been found in the city yet. We knew it was in the area. We figured it was here. We hadn't actually found it, so we were doing some mitigation to reduce the impact of it. Now we have found it in 3 sites, correct? So it's been up to 3 sites. So it's here. Once, as Andy said earlier, once you find it, it's been in the tree for a while. So we have, in those trees that haven't been treated yet, we don't know if they're infected. We don't know what that time frame is. If they have been treated, we maybe have prolonged their life just a little bit. But as Andy presented here tonight, our suggested plan is that we work towards removal of all ash trees in the city, whether it's within 8 to 12 years. Now, I'm hearing from the discussion that it's more along the lines of 12 years is what the committee would like to see, with the understanding that as long as we can keep those trees safely standing and in healthy condition, we'll keep them, we'll go through that cycle throughout that 12-year process. Now, as Andy watches these trees, he might find a section, let's say that street that we just looked at, worst case scenario, it's got it in every single tree, and within 5 years, they're all going to be standing dead like the one picture we saw. That's a very worst case scenario, but some communities have seen that. That's not something we can control, but safety would mean that we would have to come in and remove that entire street. So what Andy's suggesting here is that we try to keep being proactive, knowing that we've just found it. We have treated 2/3 about of the city trees already. We'll continue to treat trees on that 3-year cycle, but it will reduce as we remove trees. So that dollar amount that we're spending in our budget to replace, remove, and treat will eventually become less money on treating and more money on removal and replacement until they're all replaced. So I just want the committee to be very clear that the understanding that we're suggesting is that the idea is that we will remove every single ash tree by 12 years, we won't have any ash trees left in the community. All of those will be replaced with a different variety of species.
So left alone, none of them are going to live.
Yeah, eventually, they're all probably going to be infected.
Okay,
Or, they die of old age. Trees are eventually going to die anyway.
yeah.
But-
I would think, we haven't talked about the fiscal side of this very much, but it does seem to me that this approach is quite fiscally responsible, because we could, come in and say, hey, Mayor, give us a couple $1 million. We got a whole boatload of trees we got to get rid of in the next 18 months or something. But I think the treatment, partial treatment plan and sequential removal is a fiscally responsible way to go about this huge task.
And one of the things I think with this is to piggyback on the 2016 plan is that the idea was if a street was going to be reconstructed or if there was redevelopment somewhere and there was going to be some major damage, or even if there's ways of mitigating around those trees, the idea is we're not trying to spend money to save any ash tree. We will take those out on those projects and we'll replace them with something new. So that's still part of this plan, and I guess I just, based on the couple of comments from Mr. Neal, I want that to be part of what we're understanding with the committee and getting your blessing going forward, because then that's how we will proceed. The big part of this too is education. Is our department will do a very big education piece to this. We will try to maybe we will definitely put some stuff on our website. We will have door hangers that the public will have. We'll try to do social media posts. Maybe we'll get creative and do some kind of commercial type things to help get the word out there. But that's where you as the committee, we're asking for your support on this as well, with the knowledge of what this insect can do, because you talk to many of your constituents in your areas that every single part of the city will be somewhat affected by this. There's ash trees in the whole city. We need you to help us with that educational piece as well, and that this is the best fiscally and safety, aspect for the city when it comes to this insect. Am I missing anything, Andy?
So you'd like a motion to approve the modified plan?
Tom Killian here with a question.
Sure.
Fire away.
Thank you. If we have to take action on this evening, and it sounds like it would not reduce efficiency or effectiveness, is there a way to make sure that Alder Neal's concerns and suggestions are reflected and incorporated into how this unfolds? It sounds like that will be the case, but is there a way to formalize that in any way, or for the committee to kind of make sure that occurs in the future?
I think, Alder Killian, I think you could make a motion to have the committee adopt this modified plan with emphasis on continuing our work to preserve as many trees as we can, especially during construction projects. So if you just want to,
Not ash trees,
pardon?
but not ash trees. I think that's what I wanted to clarify is as part of this plan, we're not going to work to preserve ash trees because they're going to be coming out anyway. So when it comes to an ash tree on a construction project, those are coming out.
Yeah, trees
But-
in general. I think
But yes,
that's,
other trees definitely is part of our directive. Mhm.
okay. I do need a motion, and if somebody would like to make one along those lines, that would get that job done and reinforce our prioritization of tree life.
Okay, well, I would make a motion, and thank you, Mr. Killian. I would make a motion that the plan going forward is put into words that reflect, concerns that I have brought up in terms of more gradual, phased approach, so that we don't have large-scale changes to the character of neighborhoods if we can at all help it. Now, I'm not talking about construction projects on streets. I'm talking about a management program in neighborhoods. So if the verbiage can be altered to reflect, my desire for, at least 3 or 4 phases rather than a couple, maybe even up to 5 phases if we could stretch it that far, that I would like the program to maximize a phased approach rather than in large chunks. That's my motion, if it makes any sense.
Would you like to include anything in your motion about the tree preservation and construction projects?
Well, that's outside of the ash thing. So I mean, we could handle that separately. I do want to pursue something we've already discussed as a committee in terms of tree preservation during road projects.
Very good. I think that is top of mind. Is there a second to Alder Neal's motion? Mr. Killian, thank you. Any other suggestion or, comments, concerns about the motion or the topic?
Do we want a year in there, or should we stick with the 12 years? Should we go 12 to 15? What do you?
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
think
you can
it's
turn on. Sorry, I'm asking Andy what he thinks if, because we're trying to, as far as budget-wise goes and schedule goes for treatment, we want to put some sort of a time frame to it, and with that motion that Mr. Neal made, it sounds like longer, so at least the 12 years, and I just asked Andy if we think we could stretch it out even further to do, a little bit more of that depending upon it. It is really going to depend on where the insect is as well, but.
It is, yeah, and I would completely be on board to do a 12 to 15. Realistically, I can work with whatever time frame I'm given, and I do like the more phased approach myself, but I guess what I was looking at is budget-wise, not knowing if we're going to get surplus money in order to manage this year after year, or if we just want to have, a different dollar amount spread out over a longer period of time. So I'm completely on board with lengthening this process, and just also wanted to say I very much appreciate the support, Mr. Neal. I really appreciate your thought process on the engineering work and how we progress or proceed with the community trees. So I'm definitely not a huge proponent of removal, but understand that that's a part of my role. So
I'm looking right now at perhaps if we looked at year 1, as a removal year 4, year 7, year 10, and year 13 would be 5 phases. I think that would be ample to accomplish what, like what it is I'm talking about. Otherwise, if it was, in 4 pieces, it'd be the 12-year span.
Sure, and then that final year, you'd have to add a year for replacement, because that probably wouldn't happen in the same year of removal. So,
Sure.
yep, I agree.
So let's say a 12 to 15 year, and we can adjust it based then on where the insect is and how much we're seeing it.
Right, and
Yeah.
what we're putting into treatment versus removal and replacement, and, I mean, believe me, I will manage this intelligently. I'm not gonna wholesale remove 10 trees on somebody's lot just because, so, that's,
Chainsaw Andy.
that's not what I'm here for, so.
Very good. Any other comments or guidance from the committee? I think we understand the direction we're headed here with a 12-year minimum, 12, 13 minimum. All those in favor of the motion to support the modification and the general plan, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we have unanimous approval. Thank you. It's good to have that dealt with and have some direction, and it's going to be a giant communication challenge, I'm sure. We can go to item number 5, discussion and possible action on items submitted for funding from the 2020 unspent budget. And Ms. Polly can take us through that.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to bring this forward as I noticed it was on a lot of other committee agendas too from other department heads, and I wanted to get it in the forefront. I do know that there has been discussion at our finance committee level, and I think maybe even at the city council level, about the underspends from 2020. And I know it's been brought forward from a few other departments because some other departments are in the same situation as we are, is where we're going to have a fairly significant underspend from 2020. And, a lot of that is due to the fact that we didn't open the pools this year. We had minimal programs and special events that we had to do. We still had the staff time, so we were short on revenue, but we were short on expenses as well. We cut staffing. We cut quite a bit of staffing this year. We had some vacancies. So this is something I know when the city council and the finance committee discussed it, the direction is that each department, and I believe this is what's happening, I guess I haven't gotten any further direction since those meetings, is that each department will be asked to submit their list of projects to possibly be looked at and prioritized amongst all the other departments of what might or may not be funded with some underspent, or what the city council may do with that underspend from 2020. That's all still yet to be decided. So I completely understand that, and I will submit these items and have them be ranked, but I wanted to bring them forward to the committee before I would submit them to hear your thoughts, hear your direction, and see if you had any other ideas that I did not present, or just to make you aware that these are items that our department sees as important items that should be considered when looking at the entire ranking. So we're going to have approximately $700,000 underspend when I looked at the details of last month. Now that was through the end of November, so we still had December budgets to come through, and I deducted what I thought was coming out for December. So this I feel is fairly close, but it's not. It's a round number. It's not completely accurate, but it is a substantial amount of our budget still that we will not be spending for 2020. So one of the big items that has come up, one of the things that our committee kept talking about was, every year we ask for funding for playground replacement because we have 2 years left in our city playground removal and replacement schedule. The CIP committee for 2021 did not approve the money for playground replacement this year. So that was something that I had on my list to bring forward to ask for so we could stay on our schedule. But one of the things that came up while I was looking at the Community Development Block Grant Program and one of the needs, and we have just kind of forgotten about this playground or this park is our skate park, and it's there. We maintain it. We have fixed it over the years, but it's never been on our list for any replacement or removal like the playgrounds have. And so really taking a look at it and the surfacing, we had one gentleman send us quite a few pictures a couple of months ago, just with some issues he found. Our current skate park is, if you don't know where it is, it's at Oak Island Park. It's kind of tucked away. It's on asphalt base, and it's modular skate equipment. And the modular skate equipment is good, and it can be resurfaced. It's something that can be used. It's not, we have some spots that we do need to replace some of the surfacing or fix some of the screws, but ultimately it's still in working condition and good. But it could be resurfaced again. In many cases, it could be upgraded. The skate park could be expanded a little bit to provide more of a variety. And the biggest part of it is the surfacing. Really, on a skate park should be on concrete and not on blacktop, because blacktop settles, it heaves, it's really rocky, and if a kid falls, they get very scraped up, even more than on concrete because of the rocks. So it's something we kind of looked at when I was doing the community development block grant application for it. I had a skate park company that I've worked with before when I was in Minnesota. They're out of California. Give me a little rough idea of cost estimate for upgrading, using our existing equipment, upgrading the surfacing, and then adding a few pieces. And that's about a $200,000 project. So that is where this comes in. We could do less than that and just put the surfacing down and do some resurfacing of the equipment and not do any additions, and it could be a little less costly. But this is a park where if it's not addressed now, it needs to be addressed going into the future. It is one that serves a different population of community members than our other parks do. It serves, youth, but also adults on bikes, on rollerblades, on skate parks, or on skateboards. And it's more of a destination park. So I did find out I could not apply for the community development block grant for it because of the fact that it's only one in the city, and it's a destination type of a playground and not a neighborhood playground, even though it's in the same area as Oak Island Park that qualified for that funding. So I withdrew and I submitted the community development block grant for Riverside Park. And I haven't gotten the official word, but I do believe that was funded, or going to be funded, so I'm excited about that. So I guess the reason why I'm not asking for a playground is because we are a little bit behind in our playground installation, so we have plenty of playgrounds to install in 2021. If we get Riverside, that'll be, we have Schofield left to put in. We have a couple of things to finish at Forest Park. We've got a big playground at Marathon Park to put in, and I've got 2 county playgrounds our department does to put in at Big O Plain, and then Dellsville Clare is scheduled for this year. So I guess it's okay if our department takes a year off of another funding of a playground with our playground funding CIP, and rather if we could do something like this, I think it's very important. So that's the biggest project that I would be submitting. And then the second one is more of a smaller project. It's something that came up during COVID and with our CARES funding. We were told on the county side to, and the county and the city, but really the county stress, look at everything you can possibly do to help eliminate person-to-person contact, reduce the spread of any germs, that sort of thing. So on the county side, we are replacing every drinking fountain in every park with a bottle filler. We're going to do the same thing on the city side, but when it came time to submit the project for funding, we had money left on the county to get it funded, so that's why we're moving forward. There was not any money on the city side for the CARES funding to take care of that this year. So we do feel it's going to be efficient if we have the same bottle filler in every park for us to maintain. It also helps with that reduction of person-to-person contact. Many people bring their own bottles now. We have installed a few of them at the newer parks, so it's a smaller project, but it does have a pretty large price tag to it of that $79,000. So those are the two projects that I have that I was going to submit for funding of that underspend. But if the committee has any other ideas or any thoughts on these two before we submit it, I'd be happy to hear it.
Could you tell a little more about the bottle fillers? If you don't have a bottle, are you out of luck?
Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, I see that you're on, but it has a drinking fountain on it too, as well as the bottle filler. So you can still drink,
Okay.
I believe, right?
That is correct.
Very good.
That's what I thought.
They sound like good proposals to me. Comments from the committee, Mr. Larson?
Yes,
I
thank
support
you.
these.
This is to Jamie Polly. When you say we have a $700,000 underspend, is that after, it seems to me we voted to spend some of this money for some playground equipment by 3M Park earlier this year. Is that after, over and above what we voted on earlier this year?
Yes, when I looked at the reports and what I could see that we had left, mainly from our staffing savings, I did reduce that $110,000 that was allocated for 3M. So this is in addition, or this is a beyond that. Yep.
Thank you.
And 3M is another park that's ordered, so it'll be put in next year. So that's another playground to add to the list.
Thank you, Jamie.
Any other questions, comments from the committee? I like the idea of the skate park fix-up. That makes sense. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the proposal to rehab the skate park and replace all city drinking fountains with?
I move to approve as presented.
Very good.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any other comments or concerns? All those in favor say aye.
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 Didn't hear Sarah in there. Are you still with us?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. Another unanimous vote. Wonderful to see the harmony here. Okay, we can go to educational items. The 21 staffing update and dog park special committee update, possibly talking about a little bit of action there yet this winter if it wouldn't bother the turf, but I'll shut up. Jamie?
I just wanted to give the committee a staffing update that in March, on March 1st, I got to get the two straightened out. Karen Powers is going to be retiring after 29 plus years with the city and the county. So her position is very much a city position in that, you know, she's the recreation program superintendent, runs all the pools, the splash pad at Marathon Park, the playground programs, the swimming lessons, the water aerobics, any program that we have is her position. I have in here that she is currently 80% funded by the city and 20% by the county. I got corrected on that. She's actually 90% funded by the city and 10% by the county. I think going forward, we'll probably make some adjustments to that because I'd like to see some programming increase on both sides. But either way, she's a majority city position. So I just wanted to give an update on that. I gave you an attachment of her job description just so you can kind of see what we're looking for there, what it all entails. We're hoping, because as she leaves in March is usually when she starts recruiting all of her summer employees. And we would like somebody to overlap with her for about a week. So the position closes on January 15th. Then we hope to get people in and interviewed and someone started by that last week of February so they can get a week with Karen to get some of the knowledge that she has from her long service with us and kind of get set up for the summer and have more of a smooth transition, especially as we look to open the pools. I think that's the biggest portion of that job that we need to cover. So with that, we're going to do some assessments over the next year with that position as well, because as you might recall, on the last month I gave you an update of the budget that I had requested a parks supervisor underneath Karen that would be more of an aquatics position to allow for some increased programming on both the city and the county side, and change some of that allocation. And I still think if that's our goal to, increase our pool attendance, to increase our programming, to be more involved in the community and with these events, I think we definitely need to look at another recreation position in the future, but we will take this year to see what candidate we get and how we move forward with that. One thing I didn't put in here that I think I have mentioned to the committee is that also we have a retirement of Dave Patridge, who's our administrative manager in our office. He's leaving on March 5th, and his position's currently posted as well, closes on the 15th of January. We want the same thing, about a week overlap. But that position is really responsible for helping us budget both on the city and the county side, day-to-day payroll, bills, all of that financial stuff, as well as managing our office staff. So two big, Dave's been with us 25 years as well, so two big positions within our department that are affect the city as well, because Dave's position's 50-50, city-county. So both of those are new positions that will be coming forward, as other retirements I know are on the horizon as well, but hopefully not for too long. So I just wanted to give an update on where we're at with that. And then the dog park special committee, maybe Mr. Neal, you have a little bit more to add than I do, but we did meet in December. After our December meeting, we did not have a quorum, so we didn't have any actionable items, but we gave an update on where the park is. And then they're our meeting tonight. Hopefully we have enough people come and talk about some possible fundraising events, possibly one in the winter here. And then I have some signage to show them. I got all kinds of different fun signs to show the committee. But really that's kind of where they're at right now. No other action at this time.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, I mentioned it at our last meeting, but just as a reminder, the community foundation's funds of was $12,500. I have been in communication just over the last week, and everything looks fine and dandy. I did give them that March 1st date that we would like to see funding by. But again, if there's something that we need monies for before that, to order something or purchase something or whatever, just let me know so I can get in touch with them and see if I can't move that up.
That's all I had.
So you got, I believe we're kind of lumping it under educational items. I believe Mr. Killian had a comment he wanted to make about Riverside Trail, or the trail at Riverside.
Yep, or I can't do one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was essentially, I think, just to go over what had been covered in a brief email exchange about how that portion of the trail, it seems it will be maintained this year. Is that correct?
Yes, yep. Yeah. So we were going to give an update on that. Yeah, we have a couple of things. I can give an update on 3M parking lot too, because those are the two items that we've gotten email on, and those had been discussed at the committee level. So, and Greg can add anything to this too that he feels I'm missing. But both of those pieces they will be added to our schedules. They will be on a lower priority, as we had discussed in committee, because the trail we feel we can, usually we would not, like we talked about, we wouldn't maintain that if it didn't connect anybody with anything really, where there was a trail to nowhere. Now that it goes to Thomas Street, we do see that it can connect those neighborhoods through the park to Thomas Street. It doesn't directly connect them to, a shopping center or a school, but it does connect them to that main street that can get them there. It's a little bit longer way, but we will put them on our list to maintain. We do the Riverside Park parking lot is already maintained, especially when we have shelters, or shelter rentals, because that is a year-round shelter that's open. So we will add that to that route. And then the 3M Park, we had put barricades in that parking lot earlier in the fall because we were having some issues with dumping. Now that the dumpster has been removed, as it normally is for the season, the barricades should have been removed too. So that is something that will be there. And then it is also a lower priority. It did accidentally get missed on this last snowfall, but we will correct that and make sure it's on somebody's list to get cleared as they get their other areas completed. Greg, did you have anything you wanted to add for those two?
No, I think you pretty much covered it, Jamie, but both of those locations actually should be clear as of this evening. The trail through Riverside Park was done the last snow event last Wednesday, which was, I guess we would have to say that is our first snow event. So we do have it pretty much worked out for Riverside Park. It will be maintained from Thomas Street all the way down into the south side of the park through Riverside and then back up near 3M and then back out to Sherman Street. So we do have a route all determined. And the same thing was all ready to take place at 3M. We had it on our list, and then just for whatever reason, again, being the first snowfall, the barricade was not removed and we just did not get that parking lot. But it is ready to be maintained for this upcoming season.
So for this season, there is no plan to clear the River Edge Trail all the way up to Picnic Island? Just going to go to the shelter area?
That is correct. We will maintain it. The Riverside Trail, if that's what you want to call it, that will be maintained on a snowfall by snowfall basis. So, like I said, it will be maintained from Thomas Street all the way to Sherman Street through the park after each snow event. The 3M site, that parking lot will be on a low priority, and low priority to us means within 3 days of a snow event.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can I say something? I have my hand up.
Certainly. Mr. Larson.
Those barricades have been up, have you taken them down, and has that lot been plowed as of today?
We gave direction to staff to get to that lot today, so I have to hopefully assume that it did get done this afternoon. Otherwise, it would be on somebody's shift from the snowmaking shift tonight.
Okay, because imagine my disappointment when I got letters saying that it hadn't been plowed, and I drove by there, and it was barricaded just like the south parking lot was barricaded after we had specifically said it should be plowed. And so long as it's been done, I'll go by and check, and I'll be okay with it.
But again, for transparency, it will be done on a low priority basis. That's what we had decided. So,
I understand that, but a low priority basis should have already been taken care of.
correct.
Yeah, they're just a slip up on that. Anything else along that, Mr. Killian?
I'd like to just, if I could circle back and comment on that, I'd like to first say thank you for seeing that now that the trail in the park will be, in Riverside Park will be maintained. I appreciate that. And I think discussions like this are always useful because, those who are sometimes more familiar with these areas can provide some insight. And one thing I think historically that hasn't maybe been very well known by city staff or county staff is that the trail in Riverside Park actually is a connecting trail, although maybe less known to the city. So often that had been taken, if you go from Thomas to Emter into the park, actually, and then cut west on Sherman Street, that's a very efficient pathway to, say, 3rd Avenue, where the Wausau World Market and grocery store is. So for anyone who walks that neighborhood frequently, they will know that that is actually one of the most efficient paths to get from Thomas Street to the shopping areas on 3rd Avenue. So, while that may not be apparent kind of on the surface, that is the case. So that's another reason I think it's very positive that this has been done, and I think it will serve as a useful path from parts of the neighborhood to shopping areas in the western portion. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a scenic section, so I think it's a real addition. Anything else along those lines? Anything else from staff before we go to future agenda items? Very good. Future agenda items, Ms. Polly's got more on ordinance revisions, naming rights policy, sponsorship program. Perhaps we'll have more to do on the dog park. If there's anything else right now, we could hear those suggestions, or as always, before the next
I
meeting.
have something.
Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you read the email that I received from Ms. Teagan about the time, the 11 o'clock closing time of 3M Park, and I find it a little disconcerting that, yeah, we should probably look at that and maybe look at scaling that back to, I'm saying maybe 9, 10 o'clock. We should talk about this in the future because I believe all our other city and county parks are not open that late. I mean, if you go to Marathon Park, I believe the park closes at 10 p.m.
Nope, all park hours are 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Did you hear that from Jamie?
I did, yes.
Okay.
Yes, but I guess I'm just concerned about the noises that are there in the neighborhood on the weekends and stuff, but, and I just thought I would throw that out there for just to see if we wanted to discuss that in the future. I honestly don't see the benefits of keeping a park open till 11 o'clock at night, but I would like to put that out on there for people to maybe sit and think about for a month, and let's talk about it next month.
Fair enough. Thank you. Anything else? So basically, it would be a review of city park hours and whether or not the 11 p.m. closing is appropriate.
Well, that's an ordinance revision, so we can add it to the ordinance revisions.
Okay, very
Because
good.
it's an ordinance, that it's,
Works for me. Anything else at this time? Hearing none, who wants to do the honors for a motion to adjourn?
I will.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Mr. Neal had his hand half up. Second from
Second.
Mr. Neal. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time and attention. Good night.